Hey guys, so I've had a lot of requests for this. This is going to be a look at some of my older Bionicle creations. So all of these are from the year 2011. 13-year-old MOCs right here. So I do post a few Bionicle MOCs here and there over on my Flickr and my Instagrams. If you want to see those, there's some on your screen right now, and that's mainly the place to check that out. I tend to build a lot more system stuff these days. But let's take a bit of a look down memory lane and let's see some of the stuff that I was building when I was still in high school. We'll begin with this very first MOC here. This was me building a golden armored version of Tahu. So yeah, at the time, this was when the Bionicle Stars sets were coming out, and I thought that Tahu in golden armor was the coolest thing ever, and I thought, okay, what if I could make like an ultimate version of him that was just like cooler than ever, looked awesome, and was a little bit like taller and bigger because the Stars set was a little bit small. So I tried to incorporate all the different golden armor pieces, although as you can see here, I didn't put them in the exact same locations. All three of these armor pieces were just localized on the torso instead of on the limbs. And I remember being so proud of this at the time. I remember thinking the maths that I did here to get all these, Technic lift arm pieces here to be at just the right angle so that the blade had a little bit of an angle on it. I was so happy with that. And I remember spending ages to get these golden Nuva shoulder pieces to be angled, one at the bottom and one at the top. And I managed to make it work. That's something I was proud of. Although, in hindsight, I'm not sure how much I love all these different colored pins here, but that's okay. We built this back in 2011. I'm allowed to have critiques on my stuff now. But still, this is a really fun take on Tahu, and I still, to this day, think Golden Armor Tahu is fantastic. This would be a MOC I'd love to revisit at some point. He does look pretty cool. Yeah, and I tried to incorporate some elements of his Mutta form in as well, like with this style of hand, which is kind of a callback to the original. It's more in the Liwa Mutta style, as we can see there, but yeah, an Anika version of Golden Armored Tahu. The next MOC now, let's move over through. This one here, you might have seen before. I featured this in a couple different videos. This is technically a revamp of Mark Surge, but technically, this is actually the very first version of my self-MOC Kossi. So the intention with this at the time, I actually built this pretty early on in 2011. This was probably one of the first creations in terms of like timeline order. I remember seeing a MOC online by a builder I believe was referred to as Sam I Am. I still cannot for the life of me find the original image. One day I'll find it and then I'll do a whole video about it. But I was very, very taken by his builds. And I was learning all sorts of interesting stuff from looking at it, like it's sort of, what about like making kind of custom limbs with all sorts of different, Technic pieces and other things, custom torsos, not using the kind of prefab limb elements. And at the time I thought, okay, cool, I'm going to buy some of these brand new Hero Factory sets. And I want to play with some of the masks and the weapons because they're the coolest pieces. So I went and bought Surge, I came home and I built this dude. And at the time I remember being like, I don't know if this is going to be my self-MOC. I'm not fully happy with it. I thought areas were a little too thin, like up here, and the limbs and stuff. But I was also kind of trying to go for that look at the same time, but I just wasn't happy with how it turned out. And so I said, all right, I want to post this on MOC pages, but I don't want to say that this is my self-MOC yet. So I'll just pretend this was meant to be a Mark Surge revamp. But in hindsight, many years later, I can tell you that was a lie. This was Kossi. But I ended up upgrading him later, and he became what he became today, and then became the mascot of this channel. So that is Mark Surge in quotation marks, but not quite. So hopefully taking a look at some of these MOCs can give you a bit of inspiration, in the same way that I look at the community's builds. Maybe looking back at my old stuff will give you some ideas, I hope so. The next MOC now, this is one I still think is actually pretty cool. This was what I referred to at the time as Tank Buster Liwa. The idea was, I think I was just kind of playing around with pieces, and then I put Liwa's mask on it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool. It was essentially just like, what if Liwa had cool, like, heavy-duty armor, and he'd been upgraded to take out really, like, heavy-duty threats. And this was kind of what I ended up with. So I was trying to capture an essence, of his Mutta form, again, with the similar, weapon and hand pieces and the mask and stuff. But there were a couple times, too, where I wanted to incorporate elements of his Nuva form. You can see in, this image here, I gave him his Nuva mask, and I think that works well with it, but I always liked that original Miru mask there. I thought it was pretty cool. You can see my old style of photography where I hadn't quite, upgraded my photography setup to have a clear white background. This is the a wooden shelf that I still have in my Lego room, but it's got a bunch of pieces on it now in shelves. I just took a lot of my photos up against that, but it still gets the job done. But yeah, I still think this is fun. This is, I guess, kind of loosely inspired by like Hulkbuster armor. And I remember thinking it was so cool, the idea of a character I loved like Liwa having a bunch of guns all over his arm, heavy duty armor, 6 shoulder pads. This was a mock I remember playing with a lot at the time, and just thinking looked really cool. And I remember I wanted to also make a series out of this. I was like, what if I did all the other Toa in a similar style, or if I didn't, what if I made like just sort of like really different takes on these different characters? Because, Liwa, he's meant to be this sort of like agile, free-flowing spirit. His element is air. You wouldn't really imagine him as a living tank, essentially, right? And so I thought, well, what if I made like a demonic Onua with like evil red eyes, or a steampunk Pahatu, or stuff like that? That was something I was toying with at the time, but I still haven't done. Maybe I could sometime soon. I think the concept here is cool. I definitely would upgrade this a little bit more and use a few different building techniques and stuff, but this is cool. I loved this concept. The next mock now, this was a version of Axon that I made at the time. I didn't own Axon. I only actually owned an Axon set, I want to say last year. I think I bought one at a toy fair. And so at the time, this was me being like, okay, I have his mask from some of the System Bionicle play sets. What if I just use the pieces in my collection and try to build my own version? I kind of imagined that it was him as like, the world of Motunui has fallen apart and it's like a post-apocalyptic world. What would he look like? Maybe he'd look something like this with, a darker looking color scheme, but he still fights for good. He's lost a lot of that red in him, and he's going through some tough times, And I think the color scheme's cool. I do miss a bit of the red, but hey, making do with the pieces I had, that's a fun challenge. And that's something you guys could do yourself, for sure, There's, I'm sure, a bunch of sets out there that have annoyingly gone up in price. The Lego aftermarket these days is crazy. So, hey, just make do with different pieces. Like here I'm using the Onua Mystica armor piece that came on his blaster weapon, and using that as like a gauntlet of sorts and giving him a little laser weapon there. Maybe you could do something similar, play around with modern pieces and build something. 2 Rakshi back pieces, not spine pieces, they're more arm or torso pieces, I suppose. But 2 of those there for a hammer, that's kind of fun. It's not an axe, and his name is Axon, I'm giving him a hammer, but hey, this was meant to be him in the apocalypse, he had to make do, something like that. Yeah, so different colored Axon, that's cool. This next one now, I don't remember what it was called. There's a bunch of these that I've forgotten the names for. It might have... I don't know. I don't remember. But essentially, what I did with this guy is I took apart Umbra, and I said, hey, I love that Umbra had this cool wheel design. The set Umbra, one of my favorites. And so I sort of got kind of the basic frame, and I was like, what if I just kind of change things up a little bit and made a different character out of him? And I was thinking, okay, he's fast, he's lean, he's a racer maybe. What kind of pieces would reflect that? And I thought, well, the sharp lines of this Gotorian mask here, or a Gori mask, I suppose, I feel like that has some sort of like speedy energy to it. I feel like these wings, to some degree, could also give off some like free-flowing, fast vibes. So I put those on. And I thought these claws too, the very, sharp and direct lines of them, I felt like they also gave off a nice essence or energy of speed. And I remember having these cool thoughts of like, oh, what if he's like racing through towards an enemy and he just digs those claws into them at fast speeds? Gosh, how old was I in 2011? I would have been 16, 15, something like that. My young teenage mind, I was like, oh, that's so sick. It's still pretty cool, but that was sort of the rough design philosophy behind this guy here. I kind of liked doing that a lot as a kid, just kind of kit bashing different sets together. As a kid, I was a teenager, you know what I mean. When I was but a young man. But yeah, it was a bit fun. There he is next to Stronius. I don't know this guy. I forgot his name, but he was meant to be a Toa of Time. Essentially, I went on Bricklink and I bought the orange Mask of Time, and I thought, hey, what if I make a Toa of Time? So I added this interesting like back ornamentation. I gave him a fancy looking staff with some gold on the back there, and I was like, I want this guy to feel like important and cool and like a very powerful being, because he's got his Mask of Time, which is one of the most powerful Bionicle masks in Bionicle lore. And yeah, that's what I ended up making. He's tall. You can see he's about as big as Tuma. And I liked him, you know. I remember thinking he didn't quite turn out the way I wanted him to. He felt a little kind of like lanky in the torso. At least that's how I felt at the time. I think he didn't stay built for that long. I think I ended up upgrading him into a different character that, you know, maybe if I do more videos like this showcasing my older stuff, I can highlight that dude. But yeah, a Tower of Time that I built there. Yeah, he's pretty cool. Another character that I don't remember, but this was just another Toa, and I remember being so proud of this design here. So these sort of claw pieces here, these are the same weapon pieces that came on Fentoka Bahatu. They were used on his sort of like rotor blade weapons. And turns out you can just kind of shove them into these jetpack pieces here, and then you got yourself this cool like arm gauntlet spike design there. I like that. It's an interesting weapon. It's very different. And yeah, I think I came up with that, and then I was like, all right, let's build a Toa to go with this. And then I ended up coming up with this dude. Dark blue and silver looks quite nice, and yeah, I just really liked this weapon. He was cool. Who's next? Oh yeah, whoever this dude is. Again, a lot of these names I have forgotten. I wish Mock Pages was still alive so I could go back through all the different posts that I put up there on that website and remember the names of these characters, because they are unfortunately lost to time. But yeah, I think what I wanted to do with this is I liked this mask, and I thought, hey, let me put it on a Toa. And I loved Keat Orange. That was kind of my favorite color at the time. And I thought, let's put it with gunmetal. That might look cool. And it did. It certainly did. So yeah, fun little Toa here. There he is fighting Nocturne for some reason. Oh, and here we go. I really liked this one. This is Hully Murray, but I'm kind of combining other elements of Hully and Nika into this version. I think I really was just inspired by this cool white and dark blue marbled armor, and I thought, how can I maybe make that into a Toa? And I think as I was going, I was just like, what if this was just Hully? What if I just did a different version of her? One without the dreaded lime joints that break so easily. Yeah, it was a fun little thing, and I remember being like, this is a really simple mock, but I just like this color a lot, and these wings. The original wing piece is really cool, but I thought there was a nice sort of sleek look to these wings that fit her very well. So yeah, a nice little color swap here, but one that saves a lot of heartbreak from any of those joints cracking if they were lime. Up next, Sandstalker. Here's one I remember their name. I believe someone on Mock Pages made a mock that had a similar design of a big old hat like that. And I had one in tan, and I thought, okay, what if I kind of played around with some of these Vorox armor pieces and made a kind of bounty hunter style character. This was heavily inspired by Cad Bane from the Clone Wars, because he had a big old hat. And yeah, I loved this dude. This is one of my favorite sort of like original characters in that sense. Yeah, look, I'm giving him all sorts of weapons because he's a bounty hunter, and he's highly trained in all sorts of weaponry and combat. Well, he's so cool. But yeah, this dude was great. I remember some of the backstory I had for him was that he was on the planet Barra Magna from the Bionicle storyline, and he like got involved with a bunch of different Vorox tribes, and kind of became their leader and led armies of Vorox. That was the idea I had for him. But he's fun. I have a different version of him that I might show in a later video where I upgraded him even further, and I really liked how that looked. Last few mocks now. This one here is a big old revamp of Vizon that I made. If you look closely, you'll notice these wings, this torso, elements of the legs and stuff. I kind of kit bashed together Nivork, from the set Nivork and Taraga Doom, and Vizon. I kind of just fused the two sets together, added a few extra things like this interesting weapon, these funky claws, all sorts of goodies. And I made essentially just like a Titan version of Vizon, who was a character I thought was really cool. And I thought, you know, he deserved a little bit of extra love. So I armored him up, made him cooler, made him huge, made him almost kind of the size of Takanuva. Oh gosh, and I think when I was playing with these, I often had a lot of like fights between Takanuva and Vizon. Yeah, I believe I did. Yeah, I loved this weapon too. I thought that sort of sword and shield combo there was rather interesting and fun to play with. And you can see me here posing him, looking at his weapon, thinking it's so cool, and all sorts of like almost anime poses here with him looking at stuff. But yeah, at the time, I loved that. This character was cool. Interesting arm design there too. The final mock now. This one here is a behemoth. This was me going, I want to make a Makuta Pterodax. How can I do that? I believe as well I had the Titan Mudanui set, the big, tall Mudanui. And I went, well, let me make a version that is roughly the same size, but for Makuta. So what did I do here? I combined the Cardus Dragon, I combined Maxilos, I combined Hydraxon. I essentially just took like my favorite Titan sets and just sort of mushed them together. There's elements of Maxilos's torso there, there's Cartus Dragon wings and the legs and stuff, and then just me armoring everything else up. This had very little posability. I remember the waist was just a big, there was like a solid lift arm in the middle, I believe. Do I have a photo of that? Yeah, I do. Yeah, there was kind of that big lift arm there that linked everything together. And I remember really all I could move on this dude were the arms and the wings and the head at a push. And that was kind of it. But he was always just resting up against this bookshelf at the time. I always played with him. I thought he was fun, but he couldn't move. But I was fine with that. I was like, hey, I built a Titan that isn't falling over. I'm proud of that. I built a lot of Titans back in the day, and they could not hold their own weights. But this one could, and I was very proud of that. I remember thinking he was so cool. Oh, he's got a lot of colors going on here, which is fine. This brought me a lot of joy as a kid. This was a bit of a highlight mock. I really liked him. And I didn't actually have a pearl gold Krakan back then. I bought that towards the end of high school, I believe. That probably would have fit better with some of these colors, because as we can see here, there's some like pearl gold down there and then old gold up there. So in terms of color consistency, maybe not the best, but hey, I made do with what I had. And that's where some of the best mocks are born, isn't it? And then I believe the final photo here, yep, him next to Vizon, his right-hand man, at least in the Bionicle storyline I was playing with as a kid. And then Von Nebula, because I think as a kid too, as a teenager, I keep saying kid, you know what I mean? I had this elaborate storyline that I'd come up with, and I just had my Hero Factory and Bionicle characters together in one universe. And I think the storyline I'd come up with is they came from an alternate universe that wasn't Hero Factory Land, it was something else. Is that what it's called? Hero Factory Land? I don't know. Did the universe have a name? I was like, oh, they're these like really powerful beings from another universe, and the villains, they join Makuta, the heroes, they join Mutanui and his team of Ragtag Toa. I just kind of mushed the two together, because I was like, well, at the time, especially in 2011, I was not a Hero Factory fan. I was right mad that they had taken Bionicle from us, and I bought them because I thought the pieces were cool, and that was it. It wasn't until Breakout came out that I went, maybe this Hero Factory thing's all right. I can get behind this. Yeah. Oh, that was fun. That was nice to take a little look down here, memory lane, and take a look at some of my old stuff. Let me know if you enjoyed this. If you did, I will happily do more. This was just a small amount of old stuff that I had saved away on old hard drives, and there's plenty more I could showcase. So if you want to see more, let me know. Definitely do more if I can. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got inspired as well, taking a look at some of my old stuff. I hope it gave you some food for thought. Thanks for watching. Happy building, and bye for now.